Good day, class. So finally, we are almost done with your virology. So in this video lecture, we will cover your group 6. Under this one, we only have your human immunodeficiency virus type 1 and type 2. But in this video lecture class, we will only discuss and cover your human immunodeficiency virus type 1. So basically, we are almost done with your viruses. We discussed our DNA and RNA viruses already. Originally, your human immunodeficiency virus type 1 is under Baltimore's classification group number 4. However, this virus HIV contains reverse transcriptase class kaya siya kinik out sa group number 4. Tapos si David Baltimore's nag-create na additional group which is your group number 6. Okay, so if you have some questions in our gray areas on this video lecture class, please don't hesitate to beat me up to clarify everything. So let's start with your HIV epidemiology. So according to WHO, around 32.2 million is living with AIDS infection, and about 2.5 million is newly infected per year. And out of the 32 million living with HIV infection, around 2.1 million died of AIDS. So I just want to clarify with the two terms here mentioned with your HIV infection and AIDS. Well, HIV is a virus that may cause an infection, which is your HIV infection. AIDS, which is a short term for your acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, is a condition. Okay, contracting HIV can lead to the development of AIDS. So, ano ibig sabihin nito, klase? Having your HIV infection does not guarantee you to proceed with your AIDS. Kasi meron tayong tinatawag na antiretroviral drugs. Your antiretroviral drugs is taken with the patient with HIV to control the viral load. Kung hindi makokontrol yung viral load, then it will lead to your AIDS or acute immunodeficiency syndrome. So AIDS develops when your HIV has caused serious damage to the immune system. Take note, class, that the tropism of your HIV-1 and HIV-2 is lymphocyte. So lymphocyte is a key player of your immune system. So therefore, pag ang target is lymphocytes, tapos yung mode of replication niya is either lysogenic or destroying the cell, then therefore, bababa yung number of your lymphocytes. Pag mababa yung number of lymphocytes, what will happen? So you don't have enough lymphocytes that will try to kill opportunistic organisms such as bacteria and fungi. So the former name of your HIV is human T-cell lymphotropic virus type 3 or HTLV3. And they were also called as your lymphadenopathy associated virus or LAV, and also your AIDS associated retrovirus or ARV. So as I mentioned earlier, class, that your human immunodeficiency virus, so meron siyang dalawang types. You have your type 1 and type 2. And your HIV type 1 is the most common worldwide. Compared to your HIV-2, which is commonly found in Africa and less pathogenic and has a lower rate of transmission. Although in the Philippines, class, we also detect HIV-2 in screening tests. Kasi sa kit, meron siyang HIV-1 at saka HIV-2. However, in the Philippines, specifically in the Department of Health class, yung meron lang tayo is you have your HIV-AIDS and ART or Antiretroviral Therapy Registry of the Philippines. So where this is a type of report class na pinapublish. If you want to see that one, you can check online. Type nyo lang HIV AIDS and ART Registry of the Philippines. ang report na to class showing the demographic of the HIV in the Philippines per month. Okay, merong per month to siya class, alam ko per month. And or April, May, June, per 3 months pala class, per 3 months. So, ang ginagawa ng WHO, kinukuha nila lahat ng demographic, tapos kung ilan yung male, female na infected sa Philippines. So, if you're interested with HIV, you can actually refer that one to WHO website. And then, andun yung demographics at saka partition kung sino yung maraming, kung sino sa male or female yung mas maraming cases and or ilan na yung coverage ng antiretroviral drug sa Philippines. Okay, for the transmission of the virus, you can get HIV via unprotected sex. So therefore, class, if you're sexually active, please practice safe sex. And then you can also get your HIV via pregnancy, childbirth, and breastfeeding. Also injecting drugs because the HIV can actually survive outside the body. And then, working in healthcare. Sorry, class. Pangit naman ang ano nito, class. You can get HIV via working in healthcare. High risk lang, class. High risk. Clear lang natin to, class. Yung picture may something wrong. Sinasabi dito na you can get HIV via working in healthcare. But healthcare workers have a high risk of getting HIV. But doesn't mean na pag nag-work ka sa hospital or in any healthcare facility, then you can get your HIV. And then blood transfusion and organ tissue transplant. That's why before we do your blood transfusion, all the blood bag should be tested with HIV. Tapos pag yung organ tissue transplant naman class, sinitest din siya before siya i-transplant. So HIV is that transmitted by first insect bites and then toilet seats, ayan. And then kissing, you cannot actually transmit HIV through kissing. Though there are some cases that saliva can actually contain your virus. Pero according to some journals class, you need 2 liters of saliva to transmit your virus. So, imagine mo yung class. Okay? So, 2 litro ng laway muna dapat yung mainom mo sa infected person for it to be infected. Okay? So, kissing will not harm you. Okay? Or getting your HIV. And then, also with your sharing utensils, compare with your hepatitis class A and E, which is oral fecal route. So, malaki talagang chance that you can get that virus. However, with HIV, it's not the same case. And lastly, your HIV is not transmitted by touching, of course. Bakit? Kasi kailangan talaga ng penetration class. Ayun, so dapat kailangan penetrated and then dapat mas mataas yung concentration ng body fluid. So for example, semen, and then you can actually transmit that one to other person. So now we are on the virologic part of your HIV with its characteristic. So if you can observe on this one class, ito naman yung characteristic ng ano niya, HIV, severe spike protein, envelope naman sa class. Tapos, ito yung genome characteristic niya. Tapos, ito, cone appearance and class. If you can observe with other reference, the capsid has a cone appearance class. Drawing ko yung cone appearance class. Ganito yung itsura niya. So, ganito yung itsura niya class. Cone appearance siya dapat. Ganun. Dito, hindi naman siya cone appearance ata. Ayan. But usually, pag nakakita kayo ng ganito class with a capsid orientation, HIV na yan siya. So for the composition of your HIV, so it is under the family Retroviridae, under the genus Lentivirinae. So Lenti, retro, syempre because it has a reverse transcriptase, so capable siya to go back, kaya siya tinawag na Retroviridae. Lenti naman class, kaya Latin word for your slow. Ayan. Okay? So, slow, bakit? Kasi the virus is actually slow progressing virus siya before. Even now. Okay, but there are some strains that are high progressive na. But, so, nung HIV, uh, ano siya, slow progressing virus sa class. Kaya siya tinawag or na name under the lentivirinae. Then, a retrovirus, then single-stranded RNA. Tapos, lagyan natin dito class para hindi tayo malito. With RT para under group number 6 sa class. Kasi pag walang RT class, single-stranded RNA lang, tapos positive sense siya, then pwede siyang group number 4. Ayan. Tapos they are spherical, somewhat small, 100 to 120 nanometer. Tapos according to Western blot pattern, so we have our GP160-120 for envelope protein. Take note with this one class, 160-120 pag envelope protein. Tapos you have your protein 66 or P66, other name of a reverse transcriptase. And then, pakitake note na lang din class GP31 for your integrase. And then, P24 for your core protein. Yung P24 class, ito yung usual marker na ginagamit natin for quantifying the viral load. Ayan. So, again, na ito class, mas maganda na yung cone shape ng capsid formation niya. This one. And then, I want you to at least memorize the three enzymes na meron yung HIV. So, you have your integrase. This one class. And then, next one should be protease class. Hanapin natin si protease. Eto, nakita ko na class. Ayan, si protease. Then next should be your reverse transcriptase. Okay? So, si protease naman class, ang function ni protease naman is, from the name itself, an enzyme that will degrade your peptide. The problem with your HIV when they do their replication cycle is that during translation, they produce a large, long peptides. So, kung masyadong malaki yung peptides class, what will happen? So, hindi siya mabubuo as one viral component. So, therefore, they bring their own protease class to cut. Okay, to cut the long peptides of your HIV to produce a short peptides, which is either part of other components. So, pwedeng sa transmembrane, pwedeng sa receptors, and or sa envelope proteins. For your integrase naman class, we discussed integrase already during your DNA viruses. And integrase is an enzyme that, of course, will integrate the genome of your virus to the human genome. So that's the reason why HIV have high tendency of latency class. Ayan, high tendency of your latency. And then, of course, yung pangatlo naman class, so you have your reverse transcriptase. Sorry, class. Ayan. So, ayun, structural genes for matrix naman class P6, P9, P17, P24. For attachment, of course, andyan si GP160, 120, GP41. Tapos sa replication naman class, andyan si class P66, P5131 at saka si P10. For regulation class, you have your P14, P15, 16, 19, 23 at saka 27. So at least memorize and familiarize the components of each class, structural genes. So for the replication naman class, we can observe the virus here class have a spike proteins. Tapos this one naman class is the cell, specifically lymphocyte. Okay, sulat naman natin class. Ito naman class, sorry class, mga kapal. So you have your lymphocyte class, kay lymphocyte. Pwede din naman ding class macrophage. Ayan, lymphocytes or macrophage. Okay, class. Sulat ko na lang din class, pag lymphocyte siya, ang receptor na ginagamit ng virus class is CXCR4 class. Okay, CXCR4. Pag macrophage naman class, CCR5. Okay, take note class ha, CCXR4 at saka CCR5 as your core receptor class. Okay, core receptor. Okay, tandaan class, core receptor. Pag tinanong sa quiz or sa wala palang quiz yung HIV class. So, pag tinanong sa exam, ano yung core receptor na ginagamit pag entropic? Tama, class. CCR5. Ano nga yung core receptor na ginagamit sa lymphocyte? Pag lymphocyte ang target? Tama, class. CXCR4. Okay, tandaan kasi possible na lalabas din to sa board exam. So, pag nakapasok na class yung virus, so what will happen? I-inject niya sa class, cytoplasm, yung genome niya. So, since this is RNA virus, so ang gagawin niya is ilalabas niya yung genome niya sa cytoplasm. Tapos, with the function of your reverse transcriptase, ang gagawin niya sa RNA, gagawa siya ng complementary single-stranded DNA class. Tapos yung DNA, papasok siya dito kasi DNA na siya. Tama? Kung DNA na siya, papasok na siya sa nucleus. Tapos doon na mangyayari yung replication. So with this one naman class, with the use of your integrase, they will cut the genome of the host. Tapos during the replication, they will produce mRNA. Then mRNA will produce proteins and then ito na yung mangyayari sa kanya. So since your cell regularly replicate, so therefore class, masasali si virus. Ayan, kaya mas mataas yung production of your viral load. So, ayun class, for the summary of your replication na in-explain ko in the previous slide, it will always start with your uncoating because the virus is enveloped. So, pag na-uncoat na yung virus class, so ilalabas niya na sa cytoplasm since the HIV has a RNA virus. So, RNA genome siya. So, dapat technically dapat nasa cytoplasm siya. And then, syempre, kung may dala-dala siyang reverse transcriptase class, this reverse transcriptase makes a complementary DNA. And then, next will be integration or provirus. Saan nangyayari yung integration class? Tama class, sa loob na ng nucleus. Bakit? Kasi pag nag-reverse transcriptase na sa class, yung RNA mo magiging DNA na. So, yung DNA genome, so dapat papasok siya sa nucleus. Ayun, class. So, if you can observe on the moving video class, ayan, papakita natin yung short replication niya. So, after ng uncoating, yung genome, ayan, class, yung genome niya na RNA magiging DNA. Ayan. Tapos, yung yellow class, yun yung integrase, papasok siya sa nucleus, ikakat niya yung human genome using yung integrase. Tapos, ayun na class, na-integrate na siya. After na-integrate, doon na papasok yung transcription. After transcription, syempre, magpuproduce ng mRNA. Then, translation. After translation, with the production of your proteins. And nabanggit ko na kanina, class, that the protein production ng HIV are large. So, therefore, kailangan ng protease to cut. Tapos, after nakat na yung malaking proteins or peptides, then, pwede na mag-start for assembly. And then, after that one, acquisition of your envelope. Tapos exit or egress naman class yung last. So for the immunologic manifestation class, I know that this part is already discussed in your immunology, pero i-review ko na lang din class. Okay, for initial viral replication, yung unang na mag-i-increase class is your P24 antigen. That's the reason why other test kit usually have your P24 antigen, ELISA kit naman class, to identify and determine the P24 concentration. And then class, first antibodies form, of course, you have your anti-P24 followed by your envelope polymerase, then your regulatory antibodies. Takes approximately 6 months to 1 year, kaya siya tinatawag na window period naman class. So within 6 months, usually the antibodies are not produced yet, and or other immunological parameters are still negative. And then envelope is the most immunogenic. Take note with this one class. You know this one already because the component of your envelope primarily are proteins and lipids, so therefore most immunogenic siya class. Then cytotoxic lymphocytes can suppress replicating and spreading the virus. So for the invasion mechanism class, of course, since your HIV is a RNA virus, then mas mataas yung mutation rate. And then downregulation of your MHC class 1 on your cell surface. So that's the evasion mechanism naman class of your HIV. And then, syempre, last is your silent proviral state. So, pag tinanong sa exam or board exam, the silent proviral state of your HIV is due to tama class. You have your HIV integris. HIV integris naman yung reason class bakit nagkakaroon tayo ng silent proviral state. So for the AIDS or acute immunodeficiency syndrome class, these are the characteristics. So dapat your CD4 count is less than 200 per UL. And then profound immunosuppression class, resurgence of viremia. So ibig sabihin class, mataas yung P24 antigen mo. And or using your PCR class, mataas yung viral load, and then life-threatening infections and malignancies. For HIV naman class, people with HIV that develops AIDS and died with AIDS class, usually hindi sila namamatay because of the virus. They usually die because of the secondary infections, specifically bacteria and fungi. Ayun class. Kasi yung virus, di naman niya pinapatay yung katawan mo. Pinapatay niya lang yung mga soldiers ng immune system, which is your lymphocyte. Kaya pag meron ng mga pathogenic bacteria and or opportunistic fungi, hindi na kayang mag-fight back ng immune system. So therefore, dun ka namamatay. So for treatments class, treatments will not be, for sure, will not be covered with your exam, but at least bibigay ko na lang class. You have your nucleoside analog RT receptors, then non-nucleoside RT receptors. Tapos, we also have your protease inhibitors, fusion inhibitors. Sa fusion inhibitors naman, klase yung sinabi ko kanina, dalawang fusion inhibitors na meron tayo, which is your CCR5 inhibitors at saka CCR5 inhibitors at saka CXCR4 inhibitors naman, class. Including your core receptor antagonist. Yun pala yung core receptor antagonist class. Sorry, class. And then you have your integrase inhibitors and then highly active antiretroviral therapy or HAART, which is a combination of two. And class. So pag sinabi mo highly active antiretroviral therapy class, it is usually a combination of two. So pwedeng isang nucleoside analog RT inhibitor plus one protease inhibitor. So the uh, combination of the two drugs will depend on the physician at saka guidelines given by your WHO. Then we will move to the laboratory test class of your HIV. So for the laboratory testing class, I will just like enumerate this one. So first, we have your CD4 T cell enumeration. Of course, this is very important class. Bakit? Kasi one of our criteria to classify if the HIV infection leads to your AIDS already is via your CD4 count. So with your CD4 T cell enumeration class, the gold standard paki-highlight class, you have your flow cytometry. Tapos, meron tayong forward scatter at saka side scatter class, which is, uh, if I'm not mistaken, discussed already with your hematology. So, pag forward scatter naman class, measure cell size. Pag side scatter, measures the granularity and class. Paki-take note na lang, alam ko namang memorize nyo na to kasi magaling yung mga hema teachers nyo class. Ayan. Then next, you have your detection of your HIV antibody using your enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay. Okay, describe this procedure and or principle is discussed already with your immunology and serology subject. So your antibodies is usually ginagamit for screening class sa laboratory. So pag nag-screen ka ng pasyente, specifically class blood bags, for example, blood bags, tapos yung tinitest muna is your ELISA kit immunochromatography. After immunochromatography class, pag nag-positive siya, usual na ginagawa sa laboratory, nag-ELISA. Tapos after ELISA, pwede nang i-submit sa reference laboratory. Then for the detection of your antibody class, we can use your Western blot, which is a confirmatory test. Paki-highlight class, highlight natin class. Confirmatory test, which is your Western blot. Capacity predictive value class, masyadong mataas, greater than 99%. For low at saka higher risk. Okay, that's your Western blot. For the positive results naman class, at least daw dalawa, at least two of the following will appear class. You have your P24, GP41, and GP120, GP160. Ayan class. So for example, ito yung Western blot mo. And then dapat negative for the negative control. And then at least two of the following naman daw class. Pero intermediate ito, this one. Usually, pag may ganito, nag-re-repeat tayo class. Okay, you have your P55 at saka P24. Bakit siya intermediate class? Kasi daw at least two of the following yung magpa-positive. So, P24 lang. Si P55 kasi class, hindi siya kasali sa guidelines dito. Tapos, yung positive naman class, you have your at least P24. Check P24. Ayan, P24. Tapos, you have your GP41 class, GP41, tapos GP120, 160 naman class. Ayan. Eto. Okay, with this one class intermediate kasi P24 lang yung positive. Tapos si P55 naman class hindi siya kasali dito. Kaya intermediate result siya. Yan. Yun, ulitin ko pag intermediate result, hindi naman tayo nagre-report na negative siya. So, dapat pag mariran, tapos the same result pa rin siya, you need to follow the guidelines for WHO. Usually, repeat testing after a month, 3 months, or 6 months. So, it depends on the country class kung ano yung fina-follow niya. Okay? And or in the laboratory. So, for the negative result, of course, no band form. So take note, class, on the previous slide, we discussed your Western blot, and Western blot detects the antigen of your viruses. So pagdating naman dito, class, you have your densitometry, which measures the intensity of bands to quantitate what, class? Tama, antibody. So pagdating sa exam, pag tinanong method that determines or quantitate the level of your antibody, so ang sagot natin densitometry. Tapos, if kung ang tanong, class, is to detect the different proteins of your HIV and serve as a gold standard, then you have your Western blot. And then, other confirmatory test naman, class, you have your immunofluorescence assay. IFA-RIPA, class, you have your radioimmunoprecipitation assay. Then, Lyme immunoassays at saka rapid confirmatory test. So, for the detection of your HIV antigen, we can have your P24 antigen testing class. Very common. Ito yung, pagdating sa research also, class, ito din usually ginagamit natin, P24 antigen testing. So, dito naman, class, so you have your anti-P24 monoclonal antibody class, so which is embedded on the wells. Ito. Tapos, you will add your sample. Pag add mo ng sample, magkakabit siya sa monoclonal antibody mo, class. Okay, this is your P24 antigen. Kita niyo to, class, P24 antigen. Tapos, mag-a-add ka ng biotinylated anti-P24 polyclonal antibody para maging sandwich sa class. Tapos, yung biotinylated anti-P24 polyclonal antibody mo, meron siyang peroxidase. Ito, class. Itong pink. So, that's your peroxidase. Tapos, kung may peroxidation, class, mag-a-add kayo ng labeled streptovidin. Yung labeled streptovidin kasi, class, pag nakabit siya sa peroxidase mo, will release this one and then will produce color reactions naman, class. So, if you want to learn more about the detection of your HIV antigen, you can refer to your immunology books. And of course, you have your nucleic acid testing for the viral load assay. We can use your PCR or the use of your branch chain DNA assay for hybridization, and then nucleic acid sequence space amplification or NASBA. Don't worry, class, we will discuss this one pagdating natin sa molecular bio, which will be one of your subject in your summer. And we are done with your HIV class. So that pertains the laboratory diagnosis of your HIV infection. So if you have some questions, class, please don't hesitate to ask questions. But in this case, class, the reference will only be coming from, for your exam, the reference will be only coming from this PowerPoint. So, wag na lang kayong magbasa ng HIV sa Mihon kasi masyadong detailed class. With this PowerPoint, very, ano lang siya, basic, kung ano lang yung kailangan yung malaman, class. Okay, so again, for your exam, I will only get questions from this video lecture. So please review the slides. And then if you have some questions with the slides, please don't hesitate to contact me or beat me up if you have some gray areas of this topic. Thank you, class, for listening. And then let's move on to the next and last topic, which is your Baltimore's classification group number 7. Bye, class.